Hello, my name's Madeline Flannery, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 7, Television. Here is the list of contents, basically just the things we'll be covering today. So first is television image, television screen, television genres, the commercial, analyzing commercials, television news, music videos, channel surfing, and questions. So this is just how our presentation is going to go, and here it is. Thank you for watching.
In this slide, we'll be discussing the television image. It's a form of cold media. An easy way to differentiate the two is hot media requires more engagement from its audience than cold media. Examples of cold media are television, telephone, cartoons, and speech. On the other hand, hot media would be film, radio, photographs, and printed word. Theory is based on cold media requiring more engagement than hot. Contrary to this theory is that studies show that people do not give it their undivided attention. When people are watching TV, they're more likely to converse, eat, read, and do a bunch of other activities simultaneously. Now let's talk about the television screen. An obvious contrast to its counterpart in film is that the television screen is much smaller than the movie screen. Also, something that has happened over the past decade, maybe 10 to 15 years, is that there have been many breakthroughs in terms of design and quality. TV quality is much better, especially compared to those of the 2000s, 90s, and the 80s. Also, TVs are much sleeker. The modern design is much thinner than a bulky, heavy TV in previous decades. They vary in size. Small television screen images are relatively small, creating a case for people to argue that it is a close-up medium. This close-up image gives the audience the illusion of being with others. Watching TV is much different than the movies.
One of the genres that was discussed in this chapter of the book was the commercial genre. This is one of the most influential TV genres just because we see it almost every single day, whether that's if you watch cable TV or even streaming services. They all have commercial advertisements, and one of the main purposes of it was to really generate response and create desire. So commercials were designed to create desire for the audience so they could sell their product to them and have the audience buy their products. And in 2008, American advertisers spent around $58 billion on TV and cable advertising. So this type of advertising is not cheap whatsoever. Some more stats from that our book gave us was that the most money that was spent on advertising in terms of television was on national broadcast television, and that was $18 billion spent in 2008. And because of these high costs, they have shorter time frames. This is because since they cost so much to make, advertisers do not want to spend so much money on longer commercials, and so they're making them in a shorter amount of time. So commercials have to sell their product, have to tell their story around 30 seconds. Some of the smallest or shortest commercials can be 15 to 10 seconds. About commercials, but the visual aspect. So commercials can be visually complex, and this is because if techniques are added. So these certain techniques can be like lighting and camera shots, how their camera is placed, what kind of shots they have, the pace of the commercial, and also the music. These have a very impactful message on the commercial and ultimately on trying to get people to buy these products. Commercials will typically start in the middle of action or like a storyline, because this gets the audience involved immediately into the story. This is because since they have a short amount of time, like I had said before, 30, 15, or even 10 seconds, commercials now plunge viewers right into the middle of stories. This just gets them interested faster. And these commercials rely heavily on these visuals that I talked about for gaining the desire and using that as their selling point. Things to look at in terms of commercials and their visuals can be voice, how the actors in the commercials use their voice, how they might use humor to sell a product, and how they might use props. So on this slide, I put Flo from the Progressive commercials because I feel like her as a character has really developed Progressive commercials and their sort of brand, and she brings a lot of humor. So that's how they kind of use her as a character to sell their product. Another thing to look for is facial expressions and body language. In a lot of commercials, you can kind of tell what the actor is feeling, what they're trying to portray, based on their expressions and body language. If it's specifically like an allergy type of commercial, we'll see a lot of like sad expressions if they're facing like an allergy attack, and then towards the end they usually get happy after using this product that they're trying to sell. And then one of the last things was that exaggeration matters. In a lot of commercials, typically like the ones that I just talked about, like allergy or medication commercials, exaggeration matters because these people aren't necessarily talking. It's usually a voiceover that happens in these commercials. And so the actors have to make sure that they're exaggerating their emotions in order to convey exactly what they're feeling or what they're trying to get the audience to kind of feel and connect with. And then from this, we go to analyzing the commercial. So in the textbook, they were talking about the different modes that you can use to analyze commercials. And there's different things to really look out for when trying to decide if a commercial is good or if it's bad, or overall just analyzing it in general, which I had kind of talked about in the last slide. But because they have strong visuals to sell the audience their product, here's kind of what to look for in terms of what might make a good or even a bad type of commercial. So there's narrative structure. So that's questions like, is there an action? Is there a conflict? What's the plot? Is there a narrator or a voiceover like I talked about in the allergy commercials? So kind of like, what's that narration of this advertisement, this commercial, what they're trying to tell us? And then we're looking at characters. What are their relationships? Are they appealing? Are they funny? One of them that I put on here was the character, the Geico Gecko. That's also one that we know very well and know the company. We know the company because of the gecko. And, he's always very funny in the commercials. They're fun commercials to watch. He's a little bit silly. So this is something that draws the audience in. And then how are they helping sell this product? What are the characters doing? What are they saying to sell this product to the viewers? Then we'll be looking at dialogue, what kind of language is used, and then what persuasion is also used, what kind of techniques are being used. Setting, where does the action take place? How is the setting significant? And then are there kind of like important props? I feel like in commercials, setting is very important, specifically for the example that I put here. Mayhem, he is for Allstate, and in these Allstate commercials with Mayhem, there is a lot of extravagant settings because, as we know, Mayhem causes so much chaos, and so all of his settings, like the one here on this slide, has him in front of a car on fire, and so that setting, it's funny, they kind of get their message across, being like, this is not what we want to happen to you. So setting really does matter. Another big thing is visuals. Kind of like how I talked about in the last slide, what kind of shots are being used, how is color also being used is a really big part of commercials. And then what about the lighting? So in one of these examples that I put for visuals was the Super Bowl commercial with Peter Dinklage and Morgan Freeman, and it was for Doritos Blaze and then Mountain Dew Ice. And so it was a very, very popular commercial, but they used color in that way for the Dorito Blaze to have a really dark and red undertone, whereas the Mountain Dew Ice has a very white and blue kind of icy visual effect. And then another thing to look out for is the viewers. What information is useful to the viewers? And then how does this relate to viewers? How does it relate to maybe popularity or ideas or beliefs? So viewers are really important for advertisers and in making their commercials to make them effective. And then lastly, the biggest part of why we need commercials or why ads have even been started is the product. What's the function of the product? And then how would people use this? A lot of times commercials won't specifically tell you what their function is, depending on maybe if it's a allergy commercial, like I had said, or a medication kind of commercial. They'll tell you the function, but typically it's not really verbally told to us. It's more visually told, and that's why visuals are a really big aspect of commercials. And then going back, an example that I had put for narrative structure was the Dr. Pepper Fansville commercials. These commercials have been going on for a couple of years, and Dr. Pepper did a really good job at creating a storyline and creating that narrative story throughout the years for their Dr. Pepper Fansville commercials, because they kind of created this whole storyline and this whole other universe, the Fansville universe, for college football specifically, time of the year, and trying to sell their Dr. Pepper to college football viewers and watchers, and maybe even participants. So Dr. Pepper Fansville is a very good example of what a narrative structure can look like in commercials.
Television news programs are where most Americans get their news from compared to newspapers. Consumers like to see and hear their news visually rather than reading them in a newspaper, even if they are being told the same details. However, news programs still need visuals for written words such as signs, charts, and graphs to compress the complex information being told. Dramatic elements are often used in titles or headlines to increase the engagement of audiences, such as breaking news or winning, the word winning and losing, who is telling the lie, who is telling a truth, and possibly the consequences for an event. For example, in the picture with the McDonald's outbreak news story, the headline reports 75 cases as a consequence of the E. coli found in McDonald's burgers, creating a suspense and fear tactic while still telling the truth. In television hearings, such as court proceedings, programs avoid manipulating images with camera work, such as lighting and the camera placement and angles. Oftentimes, small details involving the two can create a bias in the consumer's mind. For example, the camera angle and lighting could impact a shadow on a person, making them seem dark and deceptive, whereas vivid lighting could make a person seem bright and cheerful. When talking about music videos in television, many people first think of MTV. MTV is a program specifically created to broadcast popular music videos. Music videos often either showcase how the song was created by the artist or include a dramatic piece. However, visually, when one watches too many videos in a few hours, they can blur in one's mind due to the information overload. Surrealism is a visual style often found in music videos. It is a type of style that is dreamlike and non-linear, could be full of flash forwards or flashbacks, using fantastic images, distorted perspectives, and can be full of special effects. Surrealism comes from work of artists such as Salvador Dali, who wanted to represent the unconscious mind with their paintings. It is known to have avant-garde visual aesthetics. Experimentalism and vitality are also often found in music videos and pushed to their further limits as artists are sharing new concepts and representations of the world through unconventional methods. Music videos are also known to visually enhance the music, such as the lyricism, creating narratives using choreography, costumes, animation, and avant-garde editing techniques. It is an exciting, distinctive genre that usually dramatizes the music visually. For example, in this music video by Daft Punk, they use choreography and animation and different camera angles to transform their audio into dynamic visuals.
So for zapping/channel surfing, because of the creation of the remote control, it gave people the ability to start doing this while watching TV. So in case you're unaware, zapping is basically just like channel surfing and just jumping back and forth between channels. So if a show is playing and then it goes to an advertisement, you go to a different show that's playing that doesn't have advertisements currently playing. And yeah, so 1/3 of television watchers zap regularly. More than 50% of teenagers zap/channel surf, meaning they're not watching one program, they're going from one program to another and just sort of going back and forth. The issue with this is people aren't watching ads, and this sort of creates TV to become more of a mosaic, meaning multiple programs at once rather than just one program being watched continuously. And it just makes TV something that's only about images and auditory stimuli. And it sort of gives the viewer the ability to create their own television program and create like an electronic montage of different things rather than just watching one program. TiVo and video recording devices. So TiVo is a recording device. I don't know if this still exists, but it's a recording device given to the viewer to give them the ability to zap commercials. You can still record TV series and shows, I'm pretty sure, but I think it's through the TV. I don't think you need a TiVo. But yeah, so this has negative impacts on the advertising industry, obviously, because it's allowing people to pre-record stuff and then fast forward through all the ads and not just watch a full program with the ads. Now, because of this, TV shows are more likely to have product placement within them, meaning products are going to be shown during this television show. Like, for instance, an example of this would be like in E.T., he talks about Reese's Pieces, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, but there's examples of this in TV shows. Any sort of product just being placed casually, being used by the characters, is a good example of this. And yeah, it got to the point where companies now have to pay for their product to be placed in TV shows, or are willing to do that in order to make sure that their product is seen by people rather than just sort of hoping that the different television series pick it up and allow for it to be in the show. And this overall just sort of results in the different genres within TV just sort of losing their identity and just not feeling as authentic because there's little ads throughout the TV. So yeah.
Okay, thank you guys for watching our presentation on television and all aspects. So our 2 questions for you as the class is, what has been an example of a good TV commercial / ad to you and why? Try to use the elements of the analyzing commercial slide to explain your answer. And then question number 2 is, analyze a music video you found interesting. What factors add to its appeal? Thank you.